Na'Vi are bottom 4. So how do they use the next 5 days properly going into the main event? Like what they need to do now is they need to look at their replays, they need to identify the pattern, and they need to find some sort of solution, either by drafting or by playstyle, to deal with it, because it's very similar.
Yeah, for me, the story of this game mostly was that Na'Vi, I mean, they had perfect high ground defense. They could fight. If they had an amazing combination of their skills, if they got a good team fight, you know, they would win. If they got good positioning, they would win. But pick-off potential was all in the hands of LGD, and it's like they can't do anything then. And even though they can take those big fights, they can't take any objectives afterwards, because the fights that they took were not at the right positions, and then, you know, you can't get objectives, and then they just couldn't do anything with the advantages that they could get with the fights that they had.
As you just mentioned, of course, Na'Vi did have some times of spark, even in Game 2, and we'll take a look at one of those right now in a highlight. And Winter, as we're looking at this highlight, LGD, on the other hand, I mean, again, they surprised many of us with that Lycan pick. Of course, it is a classic for Siler, but not seeing it too commonly this time at TI5. What do you think about, I was going to say Lycan, what do you think about LGD now that we've seen them dominate once again over Na'Vi?
I mean, they took full advantage of their fight. The combo from Na'Vi missed, the vacuum into future didn't hit, and that's the weakness of when you have a full-on team fight lineup. You have to land your combinations, and if you don't, you just get punished. There's no room, again, no room for error. Na'Vi always have this type of lineup where I always say that, okay, it's either the room for error is low, or they can't make any errors at all. It's just difficult when you make mistakes like that, and you're counting on that one big team fight to turn the game around or just take a significant advantage, but you're just not getting it.
Yeah, they do turn around towards the end, again, getting those combos in, but it was
a little too late.
Yeah, a little too late. 1 second too late, of course. You want to get it initially, right, if that's your composition. We were talking overall about, and we've been discussing, all right, where, you know, what strategies are teams employing the most? What's kind of the safest bet right now? Of course, the safest is to try to cover all your grounds, as we see LGD and Secret doing. But in the case of teams that are going for just these massive combos, right, those one-one combos coming in, where else can they round it out? Or is that just the nature of one-one combos? That's kind of the risk you take. If you choose that strategy, you're just saying either it works or it doesn't.
LGD is the one choosing the fights, I feel, most of the time, because they have Storm and Lycan. They move you around the map, and Storm initiates if it's a good fight. They feel you're not together. Like a lot of the fights the customer mentioned, okay, Na'Vi is not ready to take the fight because they are not grouped out yet. Their lineup works very well if everyone is at the same area. But LGD move them around, and then they look for pickoffs when everyone is split up. Storm is just looking for whoever is alone, and they just start a fight there. And the TPs come in, but at the end of the day, it's going to be late. Someone is going to be already either dead or you're just too low to fight again.
As we take a look at just the ending moments again, just to recap Game 2, Shiva, overall, were you pleasantly surprised by LGD? Because I feel like it was kind of split in the community. Either people were like, definitely top 2, top 3, or everyone was like, no, way overhyped.
Before the group stages, I was not expecting them to be on top of the group stages, or at least top 2 in this case. Yeah, I'm definitely impressed by them. They've been playing some solid Dota, and they are, as you mentioned, covering all their bases. They can counter almost anything. They have been playing all kinds of different styles of Dota. They've been playing the pick-off Dota, as they did just now, but at the same time, they also have a Lycan in their team, so if a pick-off is successful, they've got the push there as well, they've got a bit of team fight in there as well. They have a very well-rounded squad there, so I think they did surprise me, but I shouldn't be surprised by that.
Cinder, I mean, of course, we've discussed LGD quite a few times now. We said earlier, all right, Secret and LGD, at this point, no one should be surprised coming in after a couple of these matches. Are you still convinced that maybe they'll just go all the way through the upper bracket once they enter the bracket stage?
You're saying still convinced, because I don't know if I don't feel like I was like Shiva going in. I wasn't expecting them to be on top of this group together with Secret. So the question is if they've won me over. They've definitely like changed my expectation for where they're going to end up. I think they're going to be up very high now. Top 4 seems pretty likely. As for getting to the finalists, you know, those kind of predictions are like pretty much impossible right now, because you're looking at EG, you're looking at Secret playing well, you're looking at definitely LGD as well, and then the question is who is going to rise during the main event, because there's always someone who rises to the occasion.
Very true.
And we need to remember it's group stages right now. The teams are playing for top 4, and then when you're in the winner bracket, that's the most important thing. Like the breaking point is, are you winner or lower bracket? And then if you're in the winner bracket, it's about, do you get to pick your opponent or not? Like those are the 2 most important things. And some of the teams that I think are going to be really strong, such as Vici Gaming, I still have a lot of faith in them. As long as they make the winner bracket, they might not be a team that the winner of this group will want to pick anyway, actually. So they might get a decent opponent and a matchup they would be interested in. So LGD, top 4.
Okay. As we take a look at the standings, I actually want to ask all three of you, and maybe Shiva, you the most, since we've discussed this lightly with the other guys here on the panel before. But is there something maybe we should take into account in the fact that once you go further into the bracket, obviously we're going to have best of series, right? It's not going to be best of ones or best of twos. Do you think LGD will adapt well in that system? Because what we discussed earlier was that maybe they don't adapt too well in game. But what about from game to game? How do you see that panning out?
I see that, like, that's actually a pretty big difference, I feel. I mean, obviously here a 2-0 is a big difference from having a 1-1 in terms of points, so I do feel like they are still trying everything on everything to get that second win in as well. But after losing one game, you're going to go into the best of 3 thinking, you can still win this. And I think that mentality changed already to be able to go into a best of 3 and thinking you can still do this if you win the next 2 games. And you, of course, learning from that first game to know what you did wrong and to know how your enemy plays and maybe get a bit of a better feel in terms of timings. I think the change for in this case, specifically LGD, will definitely be in favor of them. I think they can grow from game to game. And I think, top 4, I think it's pretty bold somewhere, but I can see it. I can definitely see them ending there in the top 4, yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for Group A for now on the main stream. Of course, another day left to swap up the standings a little bit, but LGD and Secret both have 14 points now. That's pretty monumental. Cloud9, Winter, you talked about this, but now they're in the top 3 with 10 points, leading ahead of Complexity, Fnatic, Na'Vi, and of course, teams like Na'Vi, IGN, MVP Phoenix, definitely no chance to catch up to Cloud9 at this point. How do you feel about Cloud9 surging back up after a rough day 1?
They definitely made a lot of improvements from the first day, and I was talking to their coach when we were having lunch just now, and he was even surprised that it was so much of a difference between the first day and second day. Something must have happened during the day they were talking, and they fixed something really important, and everything is clicking now for Cloud9.
Okay.
And they started the day with the 2-0 against IG as well, which I think is a real confident boost. And if you're going to ride that high, the emotional high, that's going to kick in as well.
Of course. On Group B then. Group B, again, we've been saying, a little bit closer so far. Also not as many matches as Group A. But the match coming up is going to be VP versus MVP Hot 6. Now, neither team at the very top of Group B. VP had some pleasant surprises. At the same time, Hot 6... maybe we should just put it as some sparks, but no real closers or nothing too spectacular that people said, wow, Hot 6 has really thrown us off a little bit. Syndran, how do you view this matchup, and how crucial do you think this is for both teams?
So I can't remember. Do we have can we bring up the standings again?
Yeah,
I can't remember the exact scores of the 2 teams. I believe, has Hot 6 won one series 2-0? They've got one. No, they drew with Vici, right?
Yeah,
okay,
then
they have
one
draw Vici Gaming, and then
2 losses.
Okay, here we go. Here's my answer. So, Hot 6, one draw, 2 losses, and VP 1 win, 2 draws, 1 loss.
Yeah.
I personally think, like Hot 6, they've played better than what their points say, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And going into this game, it's hard for me to put VP as a clear favorite based on the play both teams have shown. For Hot 6, of course, it's kind of do or die time at this point if they want to look at the top 4. They have to win this series 2-0, and they probably have to get at least another 2-0 and a draw to have a shot at that. As for VP, it's not do or die time, but with a win here, they have almost secured top 4 as well. They would be on 8 points should they win this. So definitely a very, very important game for both teams. Realistically, probably a draw, where I think Hot 6 is going to catch them a bit off guard, and then the other game, VP will probably just beat them on being on paper the stronger team.
I would actually say that Virtus.pro would actually take this one 2-0. In terms of saying logically, I think Virtus.pro should be able to take a 2-0 against Hot 6. I do agree, though, that Hot 6 have been kind of showing good plays. Even the games where they lost, they sometimes still had an advantage early in the game, and then they just either they choked or something went amiss, and then the later game they seemed to struggle a bit more than the mid to early game. And I think if you're thinking about Virtus.pro, even if you're thinking a couple of months back, Virtus.pro was the team that had the longest game. If it comes to late game, they'll be able to win the game out, and they'll be able to play it out and make as little mistakes as possible. And I think that Virtus.pro, because of that, should be able to 2-0 Hot 6.
Winter, what about you? Especially because we thought in the VP Empire match, VP had a slight edge, just given Empire's performance the previous days. But then Empire came back. The Empire stroked back, and then we have VP going down 0-2. That was their first loss. Where do you see that coming into play? Do you think it was just slip up? Obviously, those 2 teams know each other very well. Maybe that was a factor?
Yeah, I think knowing your opponents very well is definitely a huge plus. And going back to MVP as well, like VP versus MVP matchup, I think MVP in the games that they lost, they definitely showed that there were a lot of potential, a lot of strengths in their game. And just looking back at the EG series, the first game, they lost because EG had a fantastic team fight when they were defending their base. It showed to me inexperience. Hot Six were leading in the game. They had a Lash. They were supposed to just push the high ground with just a Lash alone on the high ground. Instead, they were having, for some reason, 3 heroes on the high ground, and the combo came, and they all died. And the second game, they sort of had a draft that didn't really. It wasn't bad play, It was just it was so difficult to win with the lineup they had. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say they played badly or anything, even though they lost 2 series. It's just a matter of whether they sought their heroes, I think, more or less better this time around, and decision making, Don't repeat the same mistakes. And I definitely think that they have potential to at least take 1 game off VP.
Okay. I know you were pretty excited when we saw that they picked Huskar earlier this week. Do you think we'll see that again any point soon by Hot Six? Because that's something, sure, people know about it, but if it's a niche pick, right, you don't really expect it in your game until it happens.
Yeah, I think, yet again, it comes back to the fact that the hero is for me, it's very similar to Taki. It's a strong hero, but it's better when the environment allows it. It's a situational pick. And it has to have a certain element. For example, Huskar, you need to be fighting a lot of spell damage. Then the hero is worth a pick. Otherwise, if you pick it into multiple sources of physical damage, then the hero doesn't feel the same, because you have to play him as most likely a position 1 farming hero. Then you must make it worth it.
And that particular game also was, of course, Forev into a Timbersaw, and they didn't succeed with that game. They actually ended up losing that against Vici at that point.
He got a BKB. He got a BKB just to deal with that. Usually, you don't want to deal.
Exactly.
You don't want to get BKB on Huskar because it contradicts the hero's concept. He has a lot of magic resistance, so being forced into going